Hi, my name is Richard Duffy. I'm the SAP Business One product evangelist, and I'm part of the SAP Small and Mid-Size Enterprise Global team. I'd like to welcome you to today's live demonstration of SAP Business One. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the financials module in SAP Business One. Every transaction, including all the ones that you may have already seen in some of the other demos, always end up in the financials module. So it's a key component of the solution. Not necessarily the most exciting, but an absolutely critical part. So let's dive in, and I'm going to show you some of the aspects of the financials module. So what I'm going to do is start off in the cockpit, and if you've seen some of the other demonstrations already, particularly our opening demonstration where I talked about the user interface, you'll be familiar with this idea of the cockpit. And this is where I'm really in a point where I've got control and access to all of the key information that I've decided I need to do my job. So right now I'm in the finance cockpit, and I'm just going to shrink down our menu so we get a much bigger view of what's on the screen. So you'll see right now in my finance cockpit I actually have my customer receivables aging as my dashboard, but these dashboards, don't forget, can be customized, and you can take the standard SAP dashboards and you can put in dashboards that you have created yourself using the SAP Crystal dashboard design tool. I've also got my open documents, my messages and alerts telling me the things that I have to do today, and then I've got my common functions down here. So these are the common functions that I'm going to use as a member of the finance team. So I can go in and I can process my transactions from here, but before I process my transactions, one thing we need to have a look at is exactly how the general ledger is configured. So let's dive into our modules and let's look up here in our financials area. The key to any financial system is the chart of accounts and how the chart of accounts is set up. And with SAP Business One, you have a great degree of flexibility. You can set up a segmented chart of accounts, or you can go with a very standard, very simple chart of accounts. It's up to you. In this particular instance, with my sample data that I've got, I have a segmented chart of accounts. And what we've done in the chart of accounts, we break our accounts up into these, if you like, drawers. So we have our assets, our liabilities, our equity accounts, our revenue accounts, cost of sales, expenses, our financing accounts, and our other revenues and expenses. Now, you have total flexibility how you set up the accounts inside the system. But what we provide is a number of, if you like, standard charts of accounts to get you started. And your partner will also be able to advise you on the best way to structure your chart of accounts. A couple of things that you need to be aware of with the account structure that makes life very, very easy and also helps you comply with international finance reporting standards. So with the chart of accounts, we have your general ledger account number. You then also can specify an external code. Now, this external code can be used for a number of different things. It can be used for reporting. So let's say, for example, you're doing reporting and you've got your internal GL account code, but you also need to have your accounts reported out using maybe a parent company account structure. That's where you can use the external code. You can also use that if you're exporting transactions out of SAP Business One and then bringing them into another system. You'll also see that with the general ledger account code, we have the ability to mark an account as confidential. That gives you the control to nominate which people in your organization have access to that account and which people don't. You can also set an account with a level, and that level determines the structure of some of your reporting, and we'll see that shortly. A couple of other things that you can do when you are working with your accounts. You can specify an account as a control account, so that sets some parameters, if you like, around what kinds of transactions can be posted through to that account. You can flag it as a cash account, as well as you can link it back to our cost accounting, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So for example, let's look at one of our revenue accounts. So what I've got here is I actually have a revenue account, and I have this is my sales revenues domestic. You can also specify which currency that account will accept transactions in. Now, of course, once you set up that account, that figure is locked. but you've got control over that. So if, for example, I was to go in and add a new account, you'll notice it gives me the ability to choose all currencies, or I can pick one of the foreign currencies that's set up in the system. Because remember, SAP Business One, in all versions, including the starter package, is fully multi-currency compliant. So let's go back to our sales revenue account. And here we are. And you'll see now from here, I can immediately see what the balance of my account is. So I can click on my drill down and you can see every transaction that's been posted through to that account. So it makes it very, very easy for you to do an audit. Now, not only that, you can control exactly which information you're looking at the screen at this particular point in time. You can change your view and the dates that you're selecting when you're looking at those transactions. And of course, at any point in time, you're able to simply click on the preview button and get a report and show you all those transactions printed out. And of course, you can generate a report using Crystal Reports, which will give you the ability to push all of those transactions out as an XML file, so you can then give that to your accountant. You can share it with various government reporting entities. As long as you have the XML file structure, you can take that information and you can pull that out and send it across to them. So that's very, very important to have that ability to pull that information out. So that's a little bit of a quick look at the chart of account structure and how that's done. Now, we do have some tools which make it very, very easy once you've set up your account code to then go and copy ranges of accounts and set them up with different segments. So for example, let me just dive back into that chart of accounts quickly. You'll see, for example, I have my natural account, then I have my 3 segments. I might decide I want to take all of the accounts in segment 0001 and duplicate them, and the only thing I want to change is make it segment 002. And then what I can do is I can use the account code generator to do that. So once again, we're making things very, very easy. The next thing I want to show you is just some of the transaction capabilities. Now, there's probably nothing too exciting about a journal entry, but I do want to make sure that you're aware of exactly how easy it is to process those journal entries inside SAP Business One. So all I need to do is choose my journal entry. Without getting into too much detail, in just about every transaction in SAP Business One, you have the ability to set up document numbering. So you can have different ranges of documents. In this case, a journal entry. You can have a primary series of document numbers. You can have a secondary series. Matter of fact, however you want to define those document numbering ranges, you can do that. So not only in the general ledger, but also in the sales module, in purchasing, and so on. I can specify the posting date. I can specify, for example, a due date and a document date. Now, why do I have this? Well, the reason why I have this is because not only can I use this screen for doing general ledger journal entries, but you'll see down here, it also gives me the ability from the same screen to do business partner journal adjustments or journal entries. So once you know how to use this screen for doing, for example, general journals, you also know how to do it if you need to do debit or credit memos for your business partners. Makes things very, very easy for you. You can set up templates in SAP Business One. So if you have a standard kind of posting that you like to do on a regular basis, you can set that up. And then that template will have all of this information preset, the general ledger account codes and so on. All you need to do is then go in and put in the dollar values that are applicable. You can specify when you're putting in those transactions, you can pick a transaction code. So you can create your own transaction codes that you can then use for reporting purposes. And then of course, you can have all these different reference numbers, again, giving you total flexibility on exactly how you flag or how you tag your transactions. So when you're going looking for them, it becomes very, very easy to find them. Now, one of the other things that I talked about in one of our other demonstrations was the ability to record activities. Now, you can record activities against every transaction in SAP Business One. So if you think about an activity as a note, but it can be more than that. For example, if I'm putting through a journal adjustment, and I'm putting it through because my auditors told me to do that, I can go in here and I can create a new activity, and I can specify what kind of activity that was. So it was a note in this case. Under type general, I can define a new type of note and call it an auditor's note. And then I can say update and OK. And then under my auditor's note subject, I could have adjustment required. And then I'll update that. And then I go in here and I can put in the details of the update. I can also record when I was asked to do that, because this does have a date and a time. It's automatically linking this activity to the journal entry. And I can even attach other documents as well. So let's say I have my auditor's notes. I can scan those and attach them to the journal adjustment. So what does that mean? Basically, it means you have an incredible amount of power and capability to be able to track and manage and notate everything that you're doing, not only here in the financial system, but right throughout SAP Business One. So when I go through and I want to put in a transaction, well, the first thing I need to do is I just need to look up the account in my chart of accounts. Now I can do a find here. If I want to search on the account number, all I do is double click on the account number field, and it's going to now be searching in the account number field. Or if I want to search in the account name field, I just double click on there, and then I can start typing. So for example, if I'm looking for my revaluation loss, or let's say I'm looking for my sales discounts, I can put that in. And as soon as I start typing, it automatically locates for me. So you can see that search functionality in every aspect of SAP Business One. Anywhere I do a search, what I've just shown you will work in that area. So let's say, for example, I've got a journal adjustment that I have to do to my goodwill account. So all I do is I pick that account. I can put a reference number in here. Again, that reference number will be something that's meaningful to you. I need to specify, is it a debit or a credit? And of course, because we are using double entry accounting here, no one-sided journal entries in SAP Business One, you need to put corresponding credit so that your journal entry is always in balance before you can post it. Let's say I'm going to put through a transaction of $50,000. I have to adjust my goodwill. So I go in here, I put my $50,000 as a debit, and then my transaction is automatically in here. Now, what I can do with this within SAP Business One is I can set up what are called distribution rules. How do distribution rules work? Distribution rules work on the basis that when I post to one account, it automatically then takes that posting and splits it across a number of other accounts for me. Okay, so I post to one account and then it's distributed on the basis of the ratio that I set across those other accounts. I don't have any distribution rules set up here, but just want you to be aware that you do have that flexibility inside SAP Business One, but we want to keep it fairly simple for the purposes of this demonstration. So then the next thing I need to do, because I've put in my debit, I also need to put in a credit to balance off that transaction. So I can go up here and enter it in, or I can even enter the transaction in straight away down here in the grid. So I would then want to pick the balancing account. Now, those of you out there watching this who are accounting purists, please don't pay too much attention to the account that I'm about to pick here, because you might be sitting there going, well, gee, if you're going to debit the goodwill account, you won't credit that account. But I'm just showing you for the purposes of the demonstration. So let's say I'm going to pick my amortization of goodwill account. So all I have to do is click into the credit field, and you'll notice that it automatically puts in the opposing entry. Now, if I wanted to split that across multiple accounts for the purposes of the balancing entries, I can certainly do that. I just override this amount, and then I can put in as many different accounts as I want, and then when I'm finished, I simply click on the add button and my journal entry is complete. So that's fundamentally it. That's a journal entry in SAP Business One. So again, like I said, not the most exciting kind of transaction in the world, but an important one that you need to know how to do. So a couple of other things that you can set up inside the general ledger. You can set up these posting templates. For example, that was what I was talking about there in the journal entry, where I can pick a template code, and let's see if I've got any set up in here, and right now I don't. So I'm going to create a new one. So let's say, for example, I'm going to have a standard posting template for rent. So I'm going to call this my rental expense template. And then all I need to do is specify which accounts are going to be impacted. So I'm going to, for example, I'm going to impact on my cash on, or actually my checking account, let's say, and I'm going to credit that account 100% of the transaction value. So I've selected my rental account and I click in here in the debit and I've got 100%. But let's say I want to allocate my rent across multiple departments. Let's say I've got my segmented chart of accounts set up with 5 or 6 different departments, and I want to allocate my rent across those different departments. So I can say I'm going to put 50% against this department. I then pull the general ledger account code for the next department. I'm going to allocate 25% to that, 10% to the next one, and so on and so forth. So that gives you that flexibility. But in this case, we're going to make it 100%. Now, the advantage of this functionality is that you can set up all of these posting templates, and then you can ask somebody to go ahead and do the postings, and that person doesn't necessarily need to know what the correct allocations or splits of those postings are. All they have to do is, and I'll just save this template, so that's now in there, all they have to do is go into the journal entries, and then they go in here and they pick a percentage template, and they look in here, and there you can see there's the rental expense template that I just picked up. It's automatically put in 100% is going to go to my cash at bank, 100% to my office and building. Then all I have to do is specify the amount of the journal entry, and everything else is done for me once I just click on the add button. So it makes things very, very easy for you. So that's an example of one of the transactions in the finance module. Now, finance is fantastic, but it's really more about the information that you get out of the finance system. So it's really about the reporting aspects. Before I touch on the reporting and take you in and show you that, I want to show you one other aspect of the transactions in SAP Business One, and that's the budgeting capability. So in SAP Business One, you have the capability to budget at a general ledger account level. So you can have multiple budgets set up. You can have as many budgets created as you wish. And then the beauty of this is that each of those budgets that you set up can be used in your financial reporting for doing comparatives. So you can start off with your main budget at the beginning of the year, and when you're setting up that budget, you can put in your budget scenarios. So you can create your first budget, and then you can create a secondary budget and base that budget on an existing budget. Hopefully that makes sense. So we start off with one budget, and then I create a second budget scenario using that first budget as the baseline. So I can say, for example, I've got for my fiscal year 2012, I can go in and I can create a budget name. I can import a scenario, so I can import the scenario from another company, or I can import that, or I can copy that scenario from my existing company. So here's a scenario I've got in here. There's my original scenario. Here's my destination scenario, So I'm going to create a new one, and then I just say OK, and my scenario or my entire budget is going to be copied across for me. So setting up those budget scenarios is very, very easy. Then I'm also able to do my budget distributions. So, for example, I can create all these budget distribution methods. So my method 1 is equal. In this scenario, I'm taking my budget amount and I'm spreading it equally across 12 periods. I then have another one here, which is ascending order, where I'm taking my budget amount and I'm putting it in ascending order, and it's being allocated so that it progressively increases month by month. I've now got the same thing here, except in descending order, where the budget is going to be allocated and split according to this ratio and then allocated across each of the periods in a descending manner. So the most amount of the budget is going to be in period 1. The other thing I can then do, of course, with my budget distributions is I can do my budget distributions manually. So when I'm doing my budget distribution manually, for example, I can I'll pick my level so I can see the accounts that I'm looking at. And then I just go in, I say OK, and I pick all of my accounts that currently don't have a budget set. And you can see those budgets here. And then all I need to do is go in and specify what is the budget amount. And then here are my budget allocation methods. So I've got equal, ascending order, descending. I can define a new one, or I can put the amount in manually and spread it over the 12 months. So what you'll see is when I select manual, I go in here. Let's say I've got $12,000 debit. Actually, that would not be a good thing because it's a sales account. So I've actually got, let's work on 120,000 as my credit amount for that particular revenue account. And then I can double click on that line and I can now go and override how that's spread across my 12 months of my budget period. Okay, so I can play with all those numbers, and then when I say OK and I update that, then I can go through, update that budget and continue on adding more and more of my budget numbers into my chart of accounts or into my general ledger. So that's how you put in your budget numbers. Again, remember, got our multiple budget scenarios which we can use from copying from one year to another. We've got multiple budget distribution methods which you can use for allocating the budget numbers, and then I just showed you how you enter the budgets. Now, of course, you can import those budgets in using a variety of different mechanisms, but of course your SAP Business One partner will advise you on what's the best way of doing that. So that's the budgeting. The other thing I want to touch on briefly is the cost accounting. So what SAP Business One also allows you to do is not only does it allow you to allocate your transactions to your general ledger accounts for printing your profit and loss and your balance sheet, but we also have the capability to allocate transactions against cost centers. So for example, you can have different cost centers in your organization for tracking, for example, projects. Or you could set up cost centers for tracking different departments in your organization if you weren't using a segmented chart of accounts. So the idea behind this is that when you're processing your transactions in the general ledger, not only are you able to post that transaction to the GL account, you can also get it posted to a cost center, and then you're able to do cost center reporting as well as your standard general ledger reporting. With the cost center accounting, there's a number of different things that you can do as far as the distribution of transactions across those cost centers. So the same way that we saw our general ledger account or general ledger posting template created with the percentage allocations, I can do A similar thing with my cost centers. So important to bear that in mind. So with that, let's now take a step back and have a look at our financial reporting in SAP Business One. So as I mentioned before, it's important to get the transactions into the system, but what's more important is how you can get those transactions out and how you report. So that's what we're doing here in our financial reporting area of the financials module. We have our standard accounting reports that we can print. So we have our general ledger reports, we have our transaction journal reports, we have transaction reports by projects, and I'm going to touch on that in a second. But we also have a number of other reports, cash flow reports, tax reports. Now, I'm not going to take you through every single report because, to be honest, for me to do that, you would be sitting here watching probably 5 days worth of demonstrations because we have so many different reports available. But the thing that you need to bear in mind with all of the reporting in SAP Business One, let's say, for example, a transaction journal report. What we do is we give you the ability to have a number of different parameters against that report. So let's say I wanted to look at an opening balance report, or I wanted to look at the closing balance report. Maybe I wanted to look at an inventory list, a goods receipt list. What we're doing here with these reports is many of the reports are actually generated the same way. So it's very, very easy for you to remember how to execute and how to run those reports. So for example, this is a transaction journal report. It'll work on any transactions in the system. In this case, I want to look at journal entries. I can specify the date range for my journal entry report. I can also specify a transaction number range. It's really up to you as to how you do that. And then of course, all you do is you click on OK, and remember, as you might have seen in some of the other demonstrations, what we do with reporting is we present you with the underlying data that's in the report to the screen first, and then once you've got that information there, you have the ability to go ahead and then produce that report in a printed format. So again, all I've done here is I've clicked on preview, and we're now generating our transaction journal report. Again, this report's using Crystal reports, but you also have the ability to produce your reports in the standard quick and easy print layout designer. Remember, 2 reporting types. Crystal reports if you want your reports to be a little bit more rich and more graphical, and they're a little bit easier to design. And then the print layout designer, where we have literally hundreds and hundreds of existing reports already created for you to choose from. The next things that you might want to look at from a reporting perspective are your financial reports. So these are things like your balance sheet, your trial balance, your profit and loss, and your cash flow. So for example, I can go in here, I can print a trial balance at any time, and you can see there are a whole range of different options that I can specify when I'm choosing my trial balance. I can print out a trial balance on the basis of my general ledger accounts, or I can print out a trial balance and include my business partner information as well. I can specify my posting date as being the date that I want to range on when I'm pulling my trial balance and I only want to select certain transactions. I can specify whether or not I want to see accounts with no postings, whether I want to see 0 balance accounts. I can specify if I want to show information for each control account. And then all the other information that I've stored against those transactions and against those account codes, I can specify whether I want to see that. You might recall I explained to you in the chart of accounts, for example, we have not only your internal general ledger account code, but we also have an external code. So you can click here on the external code and your trial balance will be printed up using not only your internal code, you can print it up using the external code as well. So you then, if you are doing head office reporting and they say, look, I don't want to see all of your account numbers, I want to see our head office account numbers, you choose external code and that's what you'll see. You can specify if you're doing multi-currency postings into your accounts, do you want to print your trial balance in the foreign currency, in the system currency, or the local and the system currency. So you've got total flexibility over how you do that. So once you've specified all of those parameters, you can then choose whether or not you want an annual report, a quarterly report, monthly, or a periodic report, which is going to break it down across the periods for you. So there are so many different parameters that you can specify here. Hopefully you've got a bit of an understanding of exactly how flexible the reporting is. And then you can even take it one step further and you can go into an expanded view and you can specify exactly which transactions you want to see in your trial balance. So incredible amount of flexibility. And then once you've set all those parameters, you can go in here and you can say OK. And what it will basically do is it will go and generate the information for you based on the parameters that you've selected. So when I've got all of those parameters set, I can then go ahead and generate my trial balance. Now, of course, one other thing that I do need to do is I need to make sure I select which accounts I want to include in my trial balance. And this is where you're going to see those level codes that we put against our accounts coming into play. So for example, right now, if I select level 1, you'll see I've got all of my level 1 accounts, which are assets, liabilities, equity, revenues, and so on. If I select level 2, you'll then see it goes to that next level of totaling, if you like, which is my current assets, fixed assets, long-term assets. So it's that next level down. If I select level 3, it then takes me to my next level, which I've set up underneath those account headers. And then I could, of course, go to level 4, where I get down to the individual account level. And this is where I have the capability to specify which accounts I want to include and which ones I don't. Okay, simply by clicking on here. Now, for the purposes of the demonstration, I'm going to select all of the accounts. The thing to bear in mind is if you don't select the right accounts, you can end up with a report looking like your trial balance doesn't balance. So again, you need to bear that in mind, but this isn't training, this is demonstration. So I'm just going to select all of those accounts and then I'm going to say OK. And you'll see the system then goes through and it presents me with the information that I need to see. All right. So in this particular instance, with the date range that I've specified, 1st of the 1st to the 31st of the 1st, you'll see there is no result. Okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to generate that again, but this time I'm going to go from period 1 in 2011 and I'm going to go through to period 12 in 2011. So I'm going to pick up any transactions that have occurred in this financial year. Okay, and I'll generate that again. Again, select the accounts that I want to see. Don't want business partners, and I'll say OK. And now I'm getting my transactions. Let's expand that out. So the beauty of this is I can print this report now at this level, at my level 1. But once I've generated the report, what I'm also able to do is I can then say, well, I want to see that report now at level 2. I can then say level 3 or level 4. And I don't have to regenerate the report. All I'm getting is a different level of detail each time I print that report. So some pretty powerful reporting functionality available just with the standard P&L reports and balance sheet. So that's our balance sheet. P&L statement, pretty much a similar process. Again, I pick my posting date here. I specify what do I want to see in my report. My accounts with 0 balances, do I want to see those? Yes. Same thing, foreign name, external code, do I want it in local currency or system currency? And then what balance do I want in my second column? Do I want the year to date or the life to date? I'm going to say I want the year to date because I want to do actual for the period and year to date. So I can pick, for example, a monthly report or a quarterly report. Let's do a quarterly report for the sake of the exercise. So I've got my quarterly report and my year to date. And then all I need to do is say OK, and you'll now see it's gone ahead and it's generated my profit and loss. So I've got my revenues less my cost of sales, gives me my gross profit. So I've got my total and year to date. Then I've got that split out by quarters. So you can see I had no transactions in Q1. The company started up in Q2. I've got no transactions in Q3 right now because I haven't started entering any transactions for Q3. All I've been processing is transactions in Q2, and that's what I'm getting there, is I'm getting my my transactions summarized. Same thing again here. I can pick my levels, get a more detailed drill down till I get to the actual accounts themselves, and you can see all of my revenue, for example, for this quarter has gone through to my sales revenues for my domestic account. And then if I want to print that out, again, one click, and there you go, I get my profit and loss report printed out for me. Now you can of course customize all of those print layouts, and again, to do that, very simple, very quick and easy. You select the report that you want, and then you just click here on your layout designer. You pick the report layout that you want to choose or that you want to utilize, and start adjusting that layout. Now the other thing you can do is you can have multiple versions of that report, as you can with all of the reporting in SAP Business One. So I click here on Layout Designer. I can choose my Crystal Reports version of my profit and loss, and I can set that as my default. Now when I set that as my default, I can say I want that as the default report format for all users, just for me as the current user, or I can set that as the default for specific users. So when Brad and Carlos print the report, this is the version they get, but then I can say where Bob or Bill print the report, they get a different version of the report. So you've got a lot of flexibility there. I'm going to set this as the default for all users, and I'm going to update that now. So now when I generate my report, I'm going to get the Crystal Reports version of that report. And there you have it. It's generating again, and you're getting that now in your Crystal Reports format, which gives you a lot more flexibility. You can start doing graphing and charting and all kinds of different things from a reporting perspective. So that's what I wanted to show you in the financials module. If you've got any questions about what you've seen in this demonstration, then please feel free to click on the Ask a Question button, and one of us will come back to you.